Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7 by 7. So it's happening again, and man alive, this is kind of crazy. I'm talking about the user review situation on places like Rotten Tomatoes. Let's talk about Rotten Tomatoes specifically because that's where the bulk of this is happening, and heaven knows it's going to be the source of all sorts of news stories in the coming days and weeks once Solo a Star Wars story comes out. So, look. I just went through a whole bunch of upcoming releases on Rotten Tomatoes to look at what the user scores are for people who are interested in seeing the movies. I'm telling you, most, if not all of them, okay, definitely not all of them, all right, but the lion's share of them, 90% or more people want to see these movies based on the user reviews. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, there's a movie about the sculptor Rodin that has an 18% critic score, and 82% of Rotten Tomatoes users want to see that movie. So how is it possible that 38% of Rotten Tomatoes users do not want to see Solo a Star Wars story? I mean, the only other thing on Rotten Tomatoes right now that's getting this kind of merciless treatment is the upcoming remake of Superfly, which has a 50-odd% user interest rating, and that's only based on like 20 user reviews. Meanwhile, there have been another 3,000 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes for user feedback and input over the last few days. It's gone from 11,000 to 14,000, so it just jumped by a couple of thousand, and it dropped the percentage from 44% want to see it to 38%. So something weird has to be going on here. I mean, period, paragraph, end of story. And it seems like the only real answer to it is whatever happened with The Last Jedi and the way that it set people off. Well, it's only 5 months down the line from The Last Jedi, and people are still apparently feeling very wounded about that whole situation, and so they're taking it out on Solo a Star Wars story right now. And if you want to throw out an expanded universe idea about, well, you know, this is retelling the Han Solo origin story, and there were already Han Solo origin stories, and so maybe this is going to undo it, and that's possibly a source of ire, well, I don't think that necessarily holds water in this case because they did it with Rogue One. There was already a story about how the Rebels got a hold of the Death Star plans to begin with in the old expanded universe, and that story was utterly wiped out and retold with Rogue One. And Rogue One has some, fantastic reviews and feedback. That one is sitting at an 87% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. So apparently, whatever people have been feeling about The Last Jedi didn't cause them to go backward in time and start hating on Rogue One or anything like that. So, what is it that is driving this deep dissatisfaction among some people? Well, I mean, the only thing that really jumps out at me is, I know people can have different opinions about movies and whatnot, but I think it comes down to Luke Skywalker more than anything else. I think that, just even reflecting on my own feelings about this, I enjoyed The Last Jedi a lot. And yet, in the time that we were in between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi and realizing that Luke Skywalker was being brought into the picture, and how when you heard about Michael Arndt, who was the original screenwriter of The Force Awakens, how he talked about bringing Luke Skywalker into The Force Awakens early, and every time he tried to do that the movie stopped because it was like, oh, what's going to happen? Or the script stopped because it was just in script form, right? What's he going to do? What's going to happen? We've all been operating under the belief that he is so incredibly powerful that if you put him in a fight, he's just going to lay waste to everyone. And what he demonstrated in The Last Jedi, that would have to take some incredible force power to be able to project himself across the galaxy like that. So yes, he is absolutely that powerful. But I think we all wanted to see him kicking butt and taking names. Like, that's what it really came down to. People wanted to see the Luke Skywalker that we remembered from Return of the Jedi and the original trilogy. And yeah, Han Solo was kind of pretty much like the Han Solo that we remembered from the original trilogy. He had the same kind of situation, I guess, as Luke, in that life got him down and took a few bad turns, and oh, he's not with Leia anymore, and oh, his son went to the dark side. But there was still a lot of love for The Force Awakens, even for that, even for the fact that it was comparatively repetitive in its beats to the original Star Wars. Okay, let's be honest, it was. But wow, you mess with Luke, and it's another story entirely. And maybe Lucasfilm should have seen it coming, because the This Is Madness tournament that they used to do, they didn't do it for the last 2 years, but they used to do a March Madness style character bracket, and you would have to pick what your favorite character was. Yoda won it in year 1, and Obi-Wan won it year 2, Darth Vader won it in year 3, but the last year they did it was in 2016, and it was just after The Force Awakens came out, and Luke Skywalker won it there, and I think that could have been a sign to tell you, hey, fan anticipation about what Luke Skywalker is going to be up to in The Last Jedi is off the hook. It's off the charts. It's off whatever old-timey phrase you want to say. And so it's still hurting people. It's still a very difficult thing for some people to accept. So maybe it's a good thing that episode 9 isn't coming out for another year and a half. Maybe some of the fervor will die down, but unfortunately it seems like we're going to have to live with it for a little while longer, because Solo: A Star Wars Story is almost here. It's coming out tomorrow night, which is ridiculously exciting. Really, I mean, who doesn't want to see Solo on the big screen? Who doesn't want to see it? Okay, yeah, there's some people who say they don't, but whatever Rotten Tomatoes is telling you about all the people who don't want to see it, sorry, systems gamed there, unfortunately, not believing it. And that's going to do it for the episode today. I've got Last Jedi trivia over on the podcast version, the audio version. That's at sw7x7.com/iTunes or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. But for now, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.